I thought this ship was going to be easy to understand. Instead, it completely broke the way I thought about it. And when I finally figured it out, I couldn't believe what I'd missed. The C2 Hercules, Crusader Industries heavy transport platform, nearly 700 SCU, massive cargo bay, and still fast for a ship this size. Looking at the numbers, this should be one of the best cargo ships in the game. But the more I used it, the less I felt like I understood it. Every answer just led to another question. Hi, I'm Dusty Star. Today we're taking a close, honest look at the Crusader Industries C2 Hercules. Somewhere along the way, this ship stopped making sense to me. So we're doing this the factory service manual way. We'll tear it down, upgrade the systems, and put it through real-world testing. And by the end, we'll find out if the C2 Hercules earns a spot in my hangar or not. The C2 Hercules is enormous. It's 94 meters long and 70 meters wide. Its cargo bay rivals any ship of its size. But unlike most industrial ships, it doesn't feel bulky. It feels modern, fast, and refined. And looking at the specs, I thought this would be an easy recommendation. The first thing you notice about the C2 is access. Crusader gave it front and rear loading ramps. At first glance, it all feels incredibly practical. Up front, the C2 mounts dual size 5 M7A laser cannons. That's a serious amount of stock firepower for a civilian freight platform. And if you're flying with a crew, Crusader also equipped the C2 with 2 remote defense turrets. One mounted above the rear ramp, one mounted below. Together, they provide the crew defensive coverage from almost every direction. Mid-ship, Crusader placed the primary elevator entry point. Right beside it, you'll find a ladder connecting the cargo deck to the upper deck. If the elevator ever goes offline, you can still move quickly between both decks. On the starboard side, Crusader built a dedicated habitation area. 2 beds, storage lockers, dual bathrooms, enough separation that the crew actually gets personal space aboard the ship. Across from that, you'll find the recreation area and kitchen. Full dining space, large viewing screen, couch seating, everything you need to unwind after a long day, which gives the C2 a very different feeling from most industrial platforms this size. It's less like a utility vehicle and more like something you'd actually enjoy spending time in. Before we change anything, I always like to start with the factory loadout, because a ship's stock components usually tell you how the manufacturer expects it to be used. And this one immediately caught my attention. I was expecting a premium component stack. Instead, I found industrial grade C across every major system. You can absolutely run the C2 like this, but I think we can do better. Each card breaks a component down into simple trade-offs. Each row represents a different stat. More pips means more of that behavior. Those pips are calculated by comparing components of the same type and size. It's always apples to apples. There isn't a single best component. Every upgrade is a trade-off. The goal is finding the right balance for how you actually fly. In the downloadable factory service manual, I lay out 3 complete builds for the C2. A civilian build, an industrial build, and the hybrid build we're about to test. This isn't a theoretical setup. It's the exact configuration we'll use throughout the rest of this factory service manual. Let's start with the power plants. The Hercules ships with Ginzells, industrial grade C. The stock setup feels pretty balanced, decent output and durability. But the more time I spent with the C2, the more headroom I wanted across the ship. So I upgraded to Durangos, industrial grade A, more power and more hit points, and just a little hotter. Next up, shields. The Hercules ships with strongholds, industrial grade C. The stock shield is pretty restrained, small shield pool and slow regeneration, with high emissions. So for this build, I upgraded to the 7CA Nargun, civilian grade A, much larger shield pool and much faster regeneration. And with a ship this large, it's all about recovery time. Time for coolers. The C2 ships with thermal cores, industrial grade C, decent cooling generation with average durability. So for this build, I upgraded to the Chill Max, industrial grade A, more cooling generation and more durability. Let's talk quantum drives. The Hercules ships with the comma, industrial grade C. And honestly, this is one of the first components that started explaining the ship to me. Limited range and high emissions. The whole thing feels very industrial. It's dependable and predictable, but not especially flexible. So for this build, I upgraded to the Erebos, civilian grade A. Same speed, much longer range, dramatically shorter cooldown time, and lower emissions. And the more time I spent operating the Hercules, the more I realized how much pacing matters in a ship this large. The Erebos just makes the whole ship feel more responsive. Let's look at the radar. The Hercules ships with a surveyor, industrial grade C. The stock radar gets the job done, but that range is limiting, especially on a ship this size. So for this build, I upgraded to the full spec, industrial grade A. Better aim assist range and better detection range outside the buffer. Same power draw, even more durability. This ship rewards awareness, seeing problems early, making decisions quickly. Because once the Hercules commits to something, everything happens on a much larger scale. There was one final upgrade I wanted to make. I replaced all 6 factory laser weapons with ballistics. Dual 85B Gatlins for the pilot, and 84B Gatlins for both remote turrets. Flying solo, those turrets weren't going to fire anyway. But switching to ballistics solved 2 problems. The Gatling's higher projectile speed makes landing hits on fast-moving targets much easier. And unlike laser weapons, they don't place any load on the ship's power supply, leaving more power available for systems keeping the C2 alive. It felt like a small optimization, but looking back, I don't think I realized how much that decision would matter. Cargo hauling is where I expected the C2 to shine, so I accepted a simple hauling contract. Nothing crazy, just 16 SCU of processed food. That should have been enough cargo to see how the C2 handled freight work. Now I could have stacked all 16 SCU at the edge of the cargo grid and called it a day, but that wouldn't tell me much about the ship. So for this test, I loaded it the way I'd load a full 696 SCU run, starting at the very back of the grid, working my way forward 1 row at a time, as if every slot in the ship would eventually be filled. The first thing I noticed was the distance. The cargo bay is enormous, bigger than it feels from the outside, so I positioned myself high on the rear ramp, giving me a clear view of both the freight elevator and the cargo grid. The Hercules doesn't have a ship-mounted tractor beam, so I started with the max lift. I grabbed a crate, pulled it up the ramp, sent it towards the cargo grid. At first, I thought I had this figured out. Then I loaded a few more boxes and started noticing something. Every crate still had a long trip ahead of it. That got me thinking. Moving cargo boxes one at a time crossing a distance this large was slow and tedious, so I switched to the Atlas. I remember thinking, okay, this should fix it. The Atlas had the reach, speed, and precision to place crates exactly where I wanted them. Or at least, that was the theory. The Atlas fixed the speed problem and immediately introduced another. Now I had to place the cargo accurately. And with a ship this large, accuracy matters. If the cargo isn't optimized on the grid layout, the load becomes inefficient, which means less cargo and less space. One SCU crate suddenly looked a lot smaller than I remembered. And the farther back I tried to place the cargo, the harder it became to place it accurately. From the ramp, everything looks manageable. But when you're trying to position cargo at the opposite end of the bay, depth perception starts working against you. And boxes were landing everywhere except where I wanted them, which meant I kept finding myself doing the same thing. Place a box, walk to the back, nope. Move the box, walk back, try again. So instead of loading cargo, I was fixing my cargo placement errors over and over. Eventually, I admitted defeat and went back to the max lift. The C2 rewards careful cargo handling and punishes carelessness. Every misplaced box, every dropped crate costs time, especially when you're doing it alone. With the cargo loaded, I departed Area 18, set a course for the delivery location. The Hercules flies beautifully. The cargo arrives safely. Technically, the mission was a success, but I wasn't satisfied because something still felt off. The C2 did everything I asked it to do, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was working harder than I should have been. It wasn't that the ship was bad. It felt like I was fighting the ship instead of working with it. So I tried again, only this time I wasn't alone. This wasn't 16 SCU anymore. This was a full load of RMC recovered during a recent org salvage operation. Finally, it looked like a Hercules. This time the cargo was already on board. Our job was delivering it. We departed the station, set a course for the jump point, and headed towards Pyro. It was hard not to appreciate the scale of this ship. This wasn't a small hauling contract. This was the kind of load that makes the C2 feel at home. Arriving in Pyro, the real test began. Unloading. One person worked the freight elevator, the other worked the ramp. Cargo never stopped moving. Boxes came out of the ship, straight to the freight elevator. The biggest change wasn't speed, it was specialization. One person focused on moving cargo, the other focused on positioning it. During the solo test, every task belonged to me. Loading, positioning, organizing, fixing mistakes. With two people, those jobs split naturally, and the C2 suddenly made a lot more sense. But that left me with a question. Why does adding one extra person change this ship so dramatically? Because at this point, I was starting to suspect something. Maybe the Hercules wasn't designed around cargo at all. Maybe cargo is just something it learned to carry. It's a cargo ship, not a battle cruiser. I wasn't expecting the C2 to stay in the fight very long. I figured I'd spend most of the time trying to get out alive. Cargo ships aren't usually designed to stand their ground. They're designed to escape. So for the combat test, I accepted Gilly's Combat Gauntlet Scenario 5. Unlike the earlier scenarios, this one focuses on surviving sustained attacks from missile-equipped opponents. If there was a place the C2 would show its weakness, I figured this would be it. The first thing that surprised me was how maneuverable it felt. No, it wasn't gonna outturn a dedicated fighter, but it didn't have to. I could still bring targets into my sights, and when I did, the AD-5Bs did the rest. When the sights crossed the target, they connected.
Target destroyed.
Every attack run came with a price. The moment I committed to one target, somebody else started shooting at me. Apparently everyone wanted a turn. Lasers, ballistics, missiles, they just kept coming. Then something changed. I stopped watching the fighters and started watching the C2. The longer the fight went on, the more I expected the C2 to give up. It never did. Cargo ships aren't supposed to take this kind of punishment. I needed to know why. I needed someone who understood what Crusader was trying to accomplish. So I called my friend, the AstroHistorian. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Dusty, how's it going?
Good. I'm working on the Hercules factory service manual right now, and the ship has me confused. Every time I think I got it figured out, it does something that doesn't fit. It hauls cargo, but it doesn't really feel like a cargo ship. What am I missing, and what don't I understand about Crusader?
That's actually kind of funny. It is a very important company for the UEE, but what a lot of people don't realize is that it's a very important company in terms of the military. Most of the civilian aspects of the Crusader line are sort of afterthoughts, but for the most of its history, it has been a military logistics support ship.
Military logistics. Okay, so then how did Crusader become so focused on transport ships?
Because of the period of time when Crusader was founded is known, at least I've coined the term, the cargo crisis. There was just a lot of problems with transportation in the UEE at the time. They couldn't rely on other people to transport their shuttles to market, so they created their own ship called the Jupiter. It was so massive that the military very quickly caught on to this giant ship could be used to transport military assets. And that's sort of how Crusader has sort of evolved, is they built something and then they realized, oh, we could sell this to the military.
Okay, then where does the Hercules come from?
The military needed something that could deploy troops and equipment and then recover those troops and equipment once they had secured an area and then redeploy them to another location. They realized they needed a dedicated command within the military specifically to be responsible for these operations, a sort of joint task. So they called it Starlift Command. And that's where the term for the Hercules Starlifter comes from. It was specifically built for toughness. It was designed to be able to land directly on the front line, so it could take hits from oncoming anti-aircraft fire and missiles, touchdown, directly deploy Nova tanks, storm tanks, cyclones, troops directly to the front, plus all their equipment directly to the front lines, and then take off.
So the Hercules wasn't originally built around hauling cargo?
I think people treat the C2 as this sort of cargo ship designed to be a cargo ship, and they don't realize it's not a cargo ship designed to be a cargo ship. It's a military transport ship reimagined for civilian use.
That actually explains a lot. But what do you think players misunderstand about it most today?
So the long, huge ramps that's designed because they needed to be able to reach the ground for military vehicles. That huge cavernous area is less of a cargo deck and more of just a hangar deck.
A hangar deck, not a cargo deck. That's a very different way to look at the ship.
The Hercules line is good at what it does, but I think a lot of people don't use it for its purpose.
All right, thank you, Paul, so much for giving all this insight into the ship. I really appreciate you.
Hey, no problem. Good luck with your service manual. Thank you, bud.
Out here is just me and the rock. No stations, no traffic, no crowds. No one tells you what needs to be done. You just get to work. The work doesn't end with the ore. There's always something else waiting. Someone's got to clean up what's been left behind. Nothing goes to waste. What's left behind becomes something useful again. Every day's a little different, but it always ends the same way. You bring home what you worked for, or salvage materials, whatever the day's work gave you. Today's work isn't done until you've prepared the ships for tomorrow. Empty cargo grids, fresh ore pods. Because every minute you spend preparing tonight is time you don't lose tomorrow. Then you stop for a minute and look at what you've built. Every ship has a job, every tool has a purpose. None of them can do it all on their own. Together, they make the whole operation possible. And before you know it, you've built something worth coming home to. Eventually, the work is finished. You can grab something to eat, catch up on the day's news, and sit down and enjoy your favorite show. And let the day slow down. Then it's finally time to turn in. When I first climbed aboard the Hercules, I thought I understood what I was looking at. Turns out, I was looking at it all wrong. The Hercules isn't where the work happens, it's where the work comes home. It's a ship that lets you build a life around what matters to you. Because eventually, the Hercules stops feeling like a ship you fly and starts feeling like a place you call home. I'm Dusty Star, and my hangar's always open to you. Mates, this ship is just so packed with RMC.
Yeah, right?
The ore coffers are going to be so full again. Oh no.
Really? What the fuck just happened?